Hi, I'm Susie Terrell with the La Center Historical Museum. Today is March 22nd, 2024, and I'm going to be talking with Will Carter, who is going to tell us about his time growing up here in La Center and a very special friendship he developed with a neighbor, an amazing lady named Mettie Shelton.
Hi, Susie.
Hi, how are ya?
Good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So, tell me about your time with Maddie.
Uh, so my family moved to La Center in 1975, and we lived directly behind Mettie's orchard. She had a filbert orchard, and so that's what our house looked into.
So where the gas station is at that point?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't realize there was an orchard there.
Yeah, they're now homes there.
Yeah.
Behind the gas station, going north.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, yeah, going north. There was a big filbert orchard, and we lived second house up. There were just a few houses on 7th Street.
Okay.
And so I came from, my parents were older. My siblings are much older than I am. I had a sister who's 18 years older, a sister who's 14, and a brother that's 8 years older. So I always grew up around older people. I had, when we lived back in Portland before, so I lived from being born in 64 to 75 in Portland. My grandmother lived a block away, so I spent a lot of time with her, and then across the street was my sister's in-laws and a grandmother of the in-laws. So I just visited with old ladies. That was my thing. And so it just kind of almost instantly happened. Walking home from school, would walk up and I met Mettie. I don't necessarily remember exactly how or when, but and a friendship just sort of happened immediately. And at that time, Mettie had a roommate, Alice.
Oh, okay.
And Alice was from the UK, and was not in great health. She had a cane, had some trouble kind of getting around, and was a little heavy. And then there was Mettie, who weighed, maybe 100 pounds, wet and running. I mean, you couldn't get her to not run.
I've only seen one picture of her, and that was an article. I believe she was at least 85 when they interviewed her. And it's not a wonderful picture, it's just an old black and white out of the newspaper. But so at this point, when you first met, was her husband already gone?
He was already gone. So,
okay.
and I think that was one of the reasons. I think her kids said, Mom, you need to have someone staying with you, and I think also maybe a little bit of financial reason too. But I think a lot of it had to do with having someone around and companionship. And Alice also was very, very bossy. She's very bossy. And Mettie would just kind of roll her eyes, do whatever she kind of wanted to do, or just, okay, Alice, okay. And so it was this very interesting kind of relationship. And I would usually kind of say hi actually later in life, I definitely always stopped in the morning to check on her. But initial friendship was definitely just in the evening, and I would go down and sit and watch Wheel of Fortune.
Oh my God.
Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. And so that just kind of became the thing that I did, and my parents knew where I was, and I would, just snake down through the orchard and go and visit.
Yeah.
She had kind of this front porch off of this little sitting room that, sliding door, and that's where she could sit and watch the gas station also. And and sort of as, as I got a little older and such, that it became still almost every evening sitting and Alice, my memory isn't great on that. If she went back to the UK or she moved someplace.
Okay.
And so Mettie then was alone, and so at that point, I was stopping in on my way to school and checking on her, make sure everything was okay, and then I would come home from school. Sometimes would have brought her something from the store if she had requested that. She started to have signs of like angina, and because the bank, she would take the money from the gas station, because back then most of it was cash. When she got paid by her customers, and so she would walk down to the bank, which was just, I think the bank is still there down kind of near the bridge. And she was starting to have chest pains coming back, and so I started to run her bank for her in the afternoon. And then the evenings, it was still kind of that hour that I would sit with her and we'd visit. And then even a little bit later in life, my mom started to cook dinners. We realized she was not eating correctly. And it's hard to cook for one. And so mom would just make an extra, whatever we were having, at least a couple times a week, if not a little bit more. And so I would bring down a dinner and maybe sit while she ate part of her dinner. And it was usually enough that she said, "Oh, I'm going to have this for lunch tomorrow." And
that's awful nice.
She just, and we, so right behind her house, which would have been a good sized lot, that did not have orchard on it. It was just above that. And so she had a very small garden, and that was getting it was too much work for her. So my dad wanted a big garden. We had just a normal size yard with no garden spot. So we ended up tilling that whole, it would be a good sized lot, and had a giant garden. And we would pull hoses from our house for the most part, water. She would water a little bit by her place, but really a very large garden. And then, of course, shared what she wanted out of the garden. But she loved looking out. That would have been her kitchen that looked out, and she could see the garden, and she thought that was fun. So she was also good to us in the sense of we had a place to garden, and and that was a lot of that was early 80s. The economy was horrible. My dad was trying his hand in real estate, which was the worst time in the world to ever try to do that. So it was also a way to feed our family, and good time out in the garden. So I just, she really was my best friend. We hung out a lot. We shared a lot of stories. I got to know her family somewhat. And when I went off to college, so I graduated in '83 and came back just a little bit, to visit here and there. I was in Portland, going to the University of Portland, so I wasn't far, but I was in college. I didn't want to be at home with my parents. But I definitely missed Mettie, and her family. Actually, if I remember correctly, just even before I went off to school, her family said, "We're going to need to move Mettie. She can't be here without." They really relied on me to be checking in on her, and at this point, my mom too had also gone back to work, so she wasn't around much, and my grandmother was living in our home, so my mom had her hands full there, and so I felt guilty, but it was like, okay. So
you
at
had a
that
life.
point, Mettie, I believe, was 96, 97.
Wow.
I'd have to kind of sit and do the math and everything, but it was up there, and she moved out to Hillsboro because one of her sons lived out there, and she lived in an apartment. It was like more than, I mean, there were more than two duplex. They were like duplexes, but there were numerous duplexes, and I think they were all for senior living.
Uh-huh.
And so I'd go out there and visit her every so often, and then I got a call that she had fallen and broke her hip and pelvis.
Oh.
And the way she did that was she was helping a neighbor move a couch.
Oh my Lord.
And she's walking backwards with the couch, and there was a curb, and she didn't navigate the curb.
Wow.
So, I went out, and the family and the doctors were saying, at her age, it's very unlikely, it's very painful, and it's very unlikely that she will make it through this. She'll often get pneumonia at that age, and because you're not moving around, etc. Well, she proved them wrong.
Oh, really?
So she, she was definitely laid up for a while, but not, and they also said she would never walk again. I mean, just with the broken pelvis and just wasn't going to happen. She was so frail anyway. I mean, she was just tiny. And I don't remember how long it was, but she walked again.
Wow,
and,
that's amazing.
And I don't remember her walking with a cane or a walker. I think she was able to walk again. And she came to my wedding. And I'm trying to remember if it was before or after she broke her hip. I want to say it's after.
Wow.
That she was able to be there. And so, and I don't remember if she made, I need to go back through somewhere. I have a scrapbook that I have more stuff that if I can find, I will donate to the museum. But do you know how old she was when she passed away? Was she 100 or 101?
I seem to recall 101, but I'd have to look at my records for that.
Okay.
Wow.
So I think 101 is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
incredible.
And she from there she did move. She moved into, if I remember correctly, more of a care type facility or in with a family member. I don't remember exactly what happened there.
Okay. Yeah.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. I can see you. Are you there?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You froze up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were doing the same, but I got you. Okay, so when she was telling her stories, did she talk about being a midwife and the fact that she helped 121 babies into the world?
Yes, yeah, she did, and it would often be. So I'd be sitting with her in the afternoon in her little sitting area with the gas station, and I remember her vividly. She sat in a rocking. She never sat still. I mean, she was always moving. And so I remember her sitting in her rocking chair, and she used to do this on the arms to the rocking chair, and she was just always moving. And she had one of those. Well, for a while, it eventually broke, and so she just dealt with it. But she had a bell. They'd run over the hose, and it would ding ding.
Oh, right.
Or for the gas station, or she just kind of watched and listened for the car. But she'd hop up. I mean, literally, it was like this hop up and run out, and there were like 3 or 4 stairs to get down, and she'd run out and pump the gas. And she would come back, and something she would say is, "Oh, I was there when she was born. I helped."
Oh.
And she just always had stories about people who came for gas. And but yeah, she did talk about that a lot, and I want to say she had 5 kids. I'm accurate or not. But she had a good sized family herself. and she just kind of knew everyone, and she had a big kind heart. And if you came in and said, I don't have any gas money, but I need to get somewhere, she would fill your tank or give you half a tank, or
Wow.
she'd say, well, come back. And of course, a lot of people didn't. And her, she was shocked at the price of gas, and so she, on an average, was making a penny to 2 pennies a gallon.
Oh my gosh.
So it was really something to do, and so she was losing money. I mean, it was not making her money. And then I was there when gas went over $1, and her pump only went up to two things. And that's when, again, if I'm remembering correctly, so it was not financially feasible for her to have the pump, redone with a new system.
Sure.
They were somehow able, if I remember correctly, to change it so it pumped in half gallons. So she could, she marked it at 58 cents for the half gallon, and covered that for a while. And then there were additional problems with the pump and stuff. And so eventually she had to just close the gas station, which was really hard on her because it was her way of visiting with people.
Sure.
And she was an institution.
Yeah.
And on the side of her garage, she had two big clematises that people would want to always come and see because they were, just giant, very old specimens, and she was so proud of those.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah. So, nice.
But I missed the monkey years. I came in after the monkey, but Alice knew the monkey, and Alice hated the monkey. So she was glad that the monkey was no longer.
That's funny.
And yeah, so yeah, I mean, she was just really a big, because we lived in town. Most of my friends in high school or middle school, high school, lived outside of town. So she was my pal person to sit and chat with and hang out with, and learned how to make apple butter. She had an amazing old apple tree that we then helped kind of prune and take care of, and it produced huge amounts of apples.
Yeah.
And so
nice.
Lots of fun memories.
Yeah, I'll bet she just really cherished your friendship too, because when you're that age, and especially when the gas station had to close down, that would have been hard. She would have gotten very lonely, I think.
Yeah. She read a lot, but a lot of it was reading the Bible every day. That was just kind of always next to her, and I'd go down and knock, and she was, reading the Bible. And but I don't remember her. I do remember for a while people did come and pick her up and take her to church on Sundays. So I do remember that. But yeah, she just kind of knew. She had great history of the town. She was born in Eastern Washington. If I looked at a map, I'd see the name and know the name of it.
Yeah, all I know is from that one article I found, and it was mainly about the gas station, and they mentioned her husband, but they never mentioned all the babies or her doing anything else. And I thought, boy, that's just wrong. She didn't get credit. She didn't get to have her name on any of their birth certificates. And, it was the doctor who was over her. And, we have a lot of kids that come through the museum. And we have now we sponsor a scholarship, and one of the stipulations on getting the scholarship is that you have to come into the museum and you have to learn about something and write an essay on that. So I cheat a little bit because I always pulled the girls aside and I said, okay, you've got to help me right this wrong, because Maddie did all this stuff and she cared for all these babies and she didn't get any credit. And so we're getting more and more. This is going to be our third year doing it, and we've gotten about 4 or 5 different essays that had Maddie, featured, and so that's been kind of fun. I love doing that.
And I'm going to correct you on her name.
Oh, okay.
It's Mettie. Metty, so like Nettie, but Mettie.
Okay, I think I'm so used to pronouncing it wrong. I've got it spelled right, but Mettie.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she would never correct people kind of afterwards. It's an unusual name, Mettie.
Yeah, yeah. It you froze up on me again, but yeah, that's you're still there. Okay, good. So do you?
Okay.
I don't want to take a lot of your time, but do you want to talk about your time in high school and anything significant that you remember about the school or the town? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
no. It was so. I moved from Portland when I was, let's see, and had a few other influential teachers, but for me, when I graduated from high school, my parents sort of gave me keys to. I had an opportunity to take care of a home in Portland, my sister's home, because they were musicians going out on the road for a year, and
nice.
So I was 18 years old and had a house, and my parents gave me keys and said,
wow.
You need to get back to the city, and so I've been back in Portland really ever since. But it was I suppose a good place to grow up. But it's grown so much since when I was there.
It's crazy.
I don't recognize it when I drive through.
Yeah.
And I remember they built the fire station just kind of down the street when we were living there, and then the poor volunteer fire department, the alarm would go off and they'd get in those trucks, and it never failed. The poor truck would crap out at 7th Street, which is our street, and the house is burning somewhere. And it was a tough time. The economy was not great in the 80s, and there wasn't money to buy good equipment, and it was just kind of like, where am I?
Right.
But I also remember the old roller skating rink became a hot air balloon.
That's right.
Kind of manufacturing type place or something, and I got to go. So there were a couple of years of hot air balloon races, and I got to be a spotter one year.
Did you ever go up?
So I got to go up, and I was in a bit of an accident.
What?
The hot air balloon hit some power lines.
Oh my!
Over the Lewis River, and we came down into the river. No one was hurt.
Wow!
And I have been up in a balloon since then.
Wow!
But that was a bit scary.
Did that make the news? I mean, I haven't seen any kind of articles on that.
I don't remember it making the news. It was by, what was it called? Is it Daybreak Bridge? And there's a big dairy farm there.
Right.
And stuff. And
wow. So, how exciting, but scary. That's fantastic. Uh,
Got a little wet, but
uh,
no
well,
big deal.
can I ask if you knew Sharon and
Hmm.
what a character she is? I got to interview her and Don Landis McCullough together.
Yeah.
So, were you involved in Don's? Um, he got the drama department and the history department together and did a tour around La Center where they would go and stand in front of an old house, and this character in full costume would come out and read the part of, I am John Timmons, or, whoever he was portraying. Were you by chance involved in that? Oh, you froze. Are you still there?
I wasn't, and you're breaking up, but I think
Okay, now
I
you're
got
back.
everything. Are you there?
I am. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I was not, and that's actually the first I've heard of that.
Oh,
So I
shoot.
know I've met Dawn
Uh-huh.
through Sharon, but no, and Dawn. I don't know what year he started at La Center, but it was after I had graduated.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that sounds like a blast.
Yeah, when he told me that during the interview, it was like, oh my gosh, I want those stories that they wrote up. But he didn't keep any records of that. And I haven't found anybody who either portrayed the character or help write it up. And I would love to have that. So
Yeah, yeah.
always on the hunt. But I'm so glad that we got together because I've reached out to a couple of Mettie's family members and not had a lot of success there. And I guess there's her I forget what her maiden name was, but there's a museum in Idaho that is got a bunch of her family history in it. And but they're only open during the summer, and there's very few volunteers, and so I haven't actually. I guess I'm going to have to go on a road trip, to get over
Yeah.
there and actually see it. But I really appreciate you taking the time to tell me
Sure,
about
sure.
her.
Yeah, the other maybe just two things that I'll note. I remember one thing that Mettie loved to talk about was going to uh, Vancouver, Washington, which was pretty much a day trip in there, and she had a picture of her old I don't know, Model T or whatever, whatever it was, and and that she witnessed the Columbia River totally frozen over,
Oh, wow.
and that they drove across the river.
No,
And with
wow.
other cars, yeah, that it was that frozen. And she
Wow.
had an old picture of her standing by this car, not on the river, but
Uh-huh.
and that was just one of those amazing stories that it's like, wow,
That's
really?
cool.
And then the other family that I remember a lot growing up is Elmer and Tilly Soul
Uh-huh.
of Soul's Market.
Sure. Yeah.
And for a short period of time, my mom worked just as a cashier, helping out a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And Elmer was the meat cutter and butcher, and super nice guy. And then Tilly was up front. She kind of had a beehive hairdo and
Uh-huh.
very strict, very, very strict.
Huh.
And watched the kids like a hawk when they came in. And
Yeah.
there were two stores there, but they were more the mom and pop kind of market. And
Uh-huh.
my mom, Tilly was a little maybe kind of bossy or something, but my mom enjoyed her and they became kind of friends. But they, in my mind, they had the very fancy house in La Center, which was just by the old high school.
Oh, yeah.
And 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 it was in those days coming home from school because I walked to and from school, and I was at that point drinking about a gallon of milk a day in the morning.
Uh-huh.
That I could just stop in and get whatever we needed, and they just had a little form that you filled
Oh,
out,
yeah.
and mom and dad paid the bill once a month.
Yeah.
So those good old days.
What was your mom's name?
My mom was Betty Carter.
Betty Carter. Okay. Okay.
And my mom did, especially after I left, she did some volunteering up at the schools, and a Hispanic family, built a house right across the street from my parents in Mettie's old orchard.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't speak much English. And so my parents kind of took them under their wings, and mom got all of the kids enrolled in school, and every year helped make sure that they were getting to where they needed to go in the school of grades and all that.
Nice.
And I remember my dad helped Oscar, and so Oscar and Teresa, I believe they still live there,
Huh.
and they both came to my parents' funerals.
Oh.
And I remember Oscar really didn't speak much English. He worked at the bulb farm, and if I remember the story right, bought a car, got really taken by whoever sold him the car because of his English and the loan. My dad went down there and straightened that out, and threatened them with a lawsuit, and then was like, Oscar, anytime you're doing that, I'm going with you. I will make sure you're getting the right deal and
nice
with your English.
Yeah.
So, but I believe they still live directly across from my parents' old home.
Yeah. Do you remember any of their kids' names? Because I believe there's one of their kids had done some work for the museum, and actually here at my home helped with doing some landscape work. And his name is eluding me right now, but
okay,
I'll have to.
But that's Oscar and Teresa's.
I believe so. Yeah, because I know that's where he lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would be interesting if he remembers my parents, because if I'm not mistaken too, my mom might have done a little bit of tutoring, like reading, because my mom had done a little bit of that in her earlier life. So
yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll look that name up and send it to you, just so that it might ring a bell. But interesting time.
I wouldn't have known the kids at all, but I had met Oscar and Teresa a couple of times, and I just know that they were very fond of my parents.
Yeah, that's nice. That's real hometown stories. I love that. Yeah. People helping people, and So back to Sharon for a minute. Did she roast you at graduation?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So not as much. It's funny because I know she put out her book kind of all her speeches, and I hadn't thought about what she said in years, and so I went back and read that, and I've given her a bad time of, really, that's all you said about me? That's all you said about me?
Yeah.
But yes, I was mentioned.
When she published the all of her stories, I'm amazed that she got away with some of the things she said and did, and I can't imagine that being able to happen nowadays.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah,
you're probably right.
Yeah.
But she was an amazing teacher, cared about her students, and knew how to challenge you and have fun. And another teacher, Terry, why can't I think of Terry's name? I shouldn't know just her first name. Started the same time as Sharon, but left. She wasn't there my senior year, so I guess she was just there 3 years. She also, with Terry Martin, who was also just an amazing teacher, and someone who I still give credit for where I am today.
Wow. Now, did you by chance get in on the rainy day magazines that Sharon helped put out where the students
No,
went? Okay. Yeah, that's another thing. I would love to see that regenerated, but students would never be able to do that at this point. You know, go off
yeah,
and interview people in their barns and their houses and no chaperone, just drive out and do this. And those were incredible times. So,
yeah. No, I was yearbook editor at least 1 year, maybe 2 years. I don't remember, but on the yearbook staff, I think for 3 years, and so
okay.
that was a big part. And I'm still the worst speller in the world, and I usually
All right. Well, thank you again so much for, your time here and the stories that will be fun to, write up, some kind of a little essay honor myself. So, you know,
well, and I've got an old trunk full of stuff that is kind of buried in my storage room. But when I get a chance, I'll go in and see if I can find any of the stuff, and if I can, I'll definitely donate, bring it out and donate it.
oh,
And I'd love to come see the museum sometime. So
that'd be great. We'd love to show it off.